What's the business, y'all? It is your folk Marquise. And I want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the world that you may be partaking this here podcast, man. I'm just excited. I'm truly excited for the opportunity. So again, as you already know, welcome to the official Plan Maturity podcast. And today is episode 2. And what we bringing to the table this go round, we're talking about finance, man. Friday is Financial Freedom Fridays. And what it is, we basically discuss the reality of finance and its importance. We'll, of course, discuss the things that we've learned, the things we've overcome, the things that we still might be going through when it comes to finance. Our goal is to obtain financial freedom. And the things that we learn, we'll share, It's a time and place for everything, so things will be shared in segments and in pieces accordingly. But truly, we just want to share. I mean, my goal is to have other financial experts come in and share various topics and tips and things of that nature. That's for the future. As we begin to grow our audience, we will have other individuals to come on and share. But even my partner, JP, Justin, he is a financial individual. He deals with insurance, as he shared, and other financial aspects. So we'll get into all that, man. So that's what you can expect every Friday. And it's going down in a major way, man. This is the Plan Maturity Podcast, and we are creating the perfect citizen. So we're going to bring that intro in. We're going to get to the message. Thanks. Welcome to the Plan Maturity Podcast, where we've come to bring a message of maturity to millennials and their minds. That's right. Plan Maturity is a social development firm aimed at creating the perfect citizen through the introduction and impartation of valued life principles in a practical manner, using multiple platforms and methods of delivery. Expect each episode to be dynamic and full of hard-hitting truths for these generations. So without further ado, here are the hosts of the Plan Maturity Podcast, Marquise and JP. Let's go. Oh man, what's the business world? Y'all know what time it is. It's your folk Marquise, and I'm here with my partner
JP.
And we in the building, man, for the second episode of the Plan Maturity Podcast, where we're here to bring a message of maturity for the millennials and their mamas. How did you enjoy the first one, bro?
Man, first episode was dope, man. I gotta tell you, I felt real good about it. I felt like the information was conveyed perfectly. So
word, man. So this episode 2, we just gonna keep coming every week, bringing quality content for the millennials. We millennials, and we have children, so I wanted to play with the M's, the maturity, the millennials, and their manners. Right. Truly, just all in fun. But honestly, today is our finance. Again, Plan Maturity is all about growth and finance because they go hand in hand. Absolutely. The more you grow mentally, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, you can grow in your finances. And then you might have finances, but if you didn't grow mentally, emotionally, you're going to squander it. Right. And you're going to be back to square one.
Absolutely.
As we discussed, speaking about the mindset. But today is our Financial Freedom Fridays. Financial Freedom Fridays. And just like is customary, we like to take the foundations of things and build on top of it. It's good to really know where things come from, why things are the way that they are. So we like to discuss the foundation. So today we're going to just talk about literally in general, what is finance? And from there we'll discuss different avenues like cash and real estate, fiat, things of that nature. And don't be mindful of the noise in the background. We are in a house. This is life. We got the neighbor over here chopping down trees.
Right.
We just can't say, hey man, cut it out while we're doing this. So,
right.
It's life. And that's what makes podcasting authentic. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And we got our minors. So if you hear a hey every now and then, don't be alarmed.
Right.
We working with what we got for now. But
right.
Truly, man, finance, I looked it up. Finance is a term that's broadly describing the study and the system of money, investments, and other financial instruments. Again, finance in general is a term that broadly describes the study and the system of money, investments, and other financial instruments. And there are different types of finance. You got public finance, corporate finance, personal finance, and behavioral. Public finance in general is state, federal, and government So the state or the federal government finance, that's considered the public finance. Because you might wonder, all right, they just fixed the roads. That won't free.
Right.
Finally, we in Richmond, Virginia, by the way, if y'all ain't know. So in Richmond, you know, they putting a lot of roundabouts. I heard, I got to do some research. I heard that each roundabout come like $1 million, bro.
Oh, wow.
I could be wrong, but I heard some, it just could have been a roundabout figure. You know, everybody always got something to say. But I mean, that's a lot of
a lot of money.
funds allocated to something. I mean, they have their place.
Right.
But it's like, you know, schools need better books. Schools need better technology.
We need better schools in Richmond.
We need better schools, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, y'all blowing a meal on a roundabout. You know what I'm saying? That's just one of the things, but that's another episode. Then you got corporate finance, which is the business finances, and then lines of credit, things of that nature. We would love to talk about that. And one day, more than likely, we'll have an expert in that field to come and talk about lines of credit, because there are opportunities out here for us that don't require you to use your own money, your own cash, your own capital. So our goal with the PM podcast is to provide as much value as possible.
Right.
Because we're providing a message of maturity. You understand what I'm saying? For millennials and their mountains. Because we don't want to stay where we are.
Right.
We want to grow. You know what I'm saying? Mentally,
Exactly.
emotionally, physically, financially. We want to grow, so it requires us to do certain things. Then you got your personal finances. We already know what time it is with that. Either you got it, you don't got it. You had it, you lost it. What are you doing to make it grow?
Exactly.
And that goes back to Monday's episode. What is it that we learn coming up? Money don't grow on trees. You hear those statements. You gotta wait till I get paid.
Right.
You constantly hear that. Then you get paid, and the money's still gone.
Right.
So you learn that like bro said, that learned behavior, that paradigm. My paradigm is my mom struggled, my dad always worked. Where's the extra to do the extra thing?
Right.
Or you go on a vacation. Oh, we want to go get on that. We ain't got the money for that. Oh, we want to go do that. Well, we just can't do that. Is that a vacation or y'all just out of town?
Right,
You know
right,
what I'm saying? That's one of those things where you grow up and you take the heart. You know what I'm saying? We go on a vacation, but we can do the most menial things. And we're appreciative, because some people don't leave. But then, like bro said, like, what more do you want? Like, you know, is this it?
Right.
Do you have to have the most? So we understand gratitude, but it's like, is this what you're just going to allow it to be, or you're going to grow?
Right.
And lastly, we have behavioral finance, which is the emotional, social, psychological buying decisions. You know what I'm saying? And that's very important to understand for your own self, because you got to realize, I talked about it last week, gotta show it again. I would love the support on Amazon, Weapons of Mass Destruction, Loud Weapons for Quiet Wars. You have to understand that these corporations, these companies spend millions, sometimes billions of dollars on learning you.
That's
You
right.
understand what I'm saying? You wonder why you go on your phone having a conversation about something, then go on Facebook, IG, Google, and the product is right there.
Everywhere you go.
Because they're using this technology and this algorithm. They also monitor, oh man, I'm going down the rabbit hole. My bad, but they monitor your spending habits.
Right.
And they see what is it that you like, and they market it to you. So when you begin to kind of, you know, be more mindful of what you do, what you say, how you, then, you know, you can kind of fight the machine a little
Right.
bit. Because they prey on our emotions.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They market to our emotions. So everything has its place. What's your perspective on finance, bro? We just talking, man. We just talking about everything from cash, real estate, fiat, credit. I know you're my brother here, if you don't mind me sharing, is very knowledgeable about insurance. What's your thought on finance, bro? As a grown man with children and what you experienced back in the day, like, what's your thoughts on finance, bro?
Well, I think finance is, you know, is one of those things that, of course, growing up in my household was one of those things that we really didn't talk about a lot. But when, you know, when it was an issue, of course, it was an issue. So
when it was an issue, it was an issue.
Exactly. So you know, we didn't talk about money in my house. You know,
Wow.
but I knew that money was important
Okay.
because, like you said, you know, you just didn't get everything. In my house, you kind of got the necessities, of course, and they got a little bit of what you wanted, but not always what you wanted. And I like to think that was a great concept, you know, to kind of grow up to, because it allowed me to not put too much value in things.
That's good, bro. That's good.
But at the same time, I still needed that conversation as to what money is and how to, you know, how to accumulate it, what to do with it. Because, you know, personal experience, you know, when I turned 18, you know, here comes the credit cards, you know, knocking at the door or knocking at the mailbox in my situation. And so, you know, what do? You know, you get them. And if you're never taught what to do with them, you use them, right?
Yeah.
And you use them.
Swipe,
you use them exactly.
Swipe. You started doing swordsmanship, all this swiping.
Exactly, you become Zorro, man. You just swiping all over the place, and so, you know, that's what happened for me. And to you know, my surprise, you know, I was doing it all wrong.
To my surprise, I was doing it all wrong.
So I believe, you know, finances are obviously, as we know, is very important topic, but it's so diverse, you know, that you really have to devote a lot of attention to it.
Okay.
You know, and it's one of those things that isn't talked about in school as much as it should be, and you know, there's no really curriculum in public schools centered around it, and so it's one of those things that, you know, as parents especially, we have to take a personal accountability and responsibility
That's good.
to educate ourselves so that we can educate the future generation.
That's good. That's good. I believe that's important, because it's like your parents teach you what they know, and then many times they may teach you what they learned, but it's like one of those things we already know: do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
But that's one of those things,
right,
you know.
Right.
Hindsight is 20/20, you know. But it's like when you see your parents, and shout out to all the great parents.
Absolutely.
Our parents did what they knew to do
based on the information they had.
Based on the information they had, and we love them for that. We thank them, you know. But like my brother said, you know, we're in the information age. I just found out we're in a creative age, so things are different. I just had a conversation with my grandma and my wife yesterday, and my wife was sharing something, and I ain't throwing baby under the bus. I'm just sharing. We have to be mindful of our own mindset. We're talking about our oldest child getting ready to, you know, get out of high school and stuff, and she was like, "Well, I want her to do good because I want her to be in a position to take care of herself and not have to come back home and all." I'm just, hey, we're at a point of transparency. It's all good.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm sharing with you what's going on in my household to that degree.
Right.
And I'm like, babe, I want to share something with you.
Right.
We're in a new age. We're in a new time. I don't want you to fully listen to what I'm saying, because I believe education is important.
Right.
But I'm like, I see that you're equating her doing well in a public systemized school system as to how successful she's going to be in life.
Right.
Those are apples and oranges.
Absolutely.
You can go do the research. Some C students and even some D students. And I'm not saying your children should not do academically well. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But what I'm saying is we're taught, go to school,
get a good education,
and then
get a good job,
get a good paying job.
Right.
This is what we're taught. So if you chime in on that, that's what she's gonna do. Right. I'm not saying I want my daughter to bring home C's or D's. I'm not saying that at all.
Right.
Because there are many very well-to-do A students, scholars and stuff. Right. So, you know, listen to what I'm saying. There are many schools, many students that were C and D, they hired an A and B. Why? I know what I'm good at doing. I'm good at visualizing. I'm good at organizing good talent and orchestrating systems. I'm good at taking care of money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But all this obtuse trying, what is that?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So don't mistake, and this is going to free somebody, don't mistake your child's scholastic ability for their overall capabilities and what they're able to do to your household.
And I think that's so important to understand because, you know, simply put, there's different levels of education, right? You can't confuse scholastic education with financial education.
Beautiful.
Right? And so, you measure scholastic with a scholastic scale, right? You measure financial education or finances with a financial scale, right?
To cut you off. For those who may not, scholastic generally is the school system.
Right.
And what they learn in A's, B's, C's, D's, SOLs, SATs. Go ahead, bro.
Right, absolutely. And so you got, and then you got self-education. Self-education to me is the greatest form of education.
Amen.
That's a self-education. You get out and you learn by applying. You learn by doing. You learn by, because I'm a huge advocate for education.
Word.
However, I'm not a huge advocate for traditional scholastic education.
I'm with this brother. Okay. I'm with this brother on that. I mean,
right.
Hey.
And because, to be completely honest, school, I wasn't big on school. School for me was, was one of those places I had to go.
Had to go.
Okay. I mean, it was great for networking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, I could have did without all the extra, First of all, to me, it's an environment where you really have to, because again, like we said on the first episode, we're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
So you gotta adapt if you're gonna survive in that environment.
Did you hear that? You got to survive in school.
You gotta survive.
It is what it is.
Right? And of course, these days, school is much different now
man.
because of social media, the obstacles they have to deal with. You do something wrong in school, or you do something uncool or unpopular, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You got much more to deal with as a child these days in school. So I get that, right? And so for us, growing up, school was a little bit less intimidating, but it was still intimidating in our own right. So we had to make sure we was wearing the right thing, saying the right thing, doing the right thing, whatever. From a social standpoint, to make sure we weren't outcasts, right? And so I'm like, man, that's in addition to just getting your grades and doing that stuff. And you're an athlete, you had to do that. It was so much to incorporate. And so, when I look at being out of that environment, right, and now being able to be who I really am, right, without the expectations of others, it's like, man, you really get the. Now, shout out to those kids or those individuals out there in school who are still able to be themselves, right?
Shout out,
because I wasn't strong enough. To be completely honest, I was an athlete, I was a jock, so I had to kind of contend with those different things. But getting back to what we're talking about financial, education and finances. This is that information that you get with that aligns up more with that self-education, right?
Word.
Unfortunately, we begin to pay taxes.
Yeah.
Once we get 18 and things like that, and you learn a lot of things for the first time. Oh, I got a property tax. Oh, I got a car.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I got to pay this. Or you learn because of certain things hit you for the first time, and you may have not been taught those things. So you kind of learn by mistakes or learn by running into these things. So one of those things that you really should as a parent be aware of is where you are in your own personal financial plan.
Word.
Okay, because you got to understand, especially if you're a parent, that your children are learning right from watching you.
Yeah,
they learn money. We learn money from watching our parents.
We do.
Right,
we do,
and so if your parents are the type of parents that say, "Hey, man, you only live once. Go get it." You know what I mean? Then you guess what your child gonna say? "Oh man, we only live once. Go get it."
You know what I'm saying?
And I had a balance in my household. My mom, she was a stickler. She didn't splurge. She just very, because she paid the bills. So she was very methodical, very, planned out work. But my dad, he'll come home with this, he'll come home for that, and we just,
You only live once, son. Hey, I work hard. But see, look though, this is good. It's all in fun, but we're here to grow. When you think about what bro said, and that's why I believe it's so important to marry these two, growth and finance. Because growth, your mindset concerning finance is going to determine. So mom had a mindset of, I have to be strategic with these finances. They're not endless.
Right.
We worked all week. This is what needs to be done.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Whatever's left over, then you can have a little more fun.
Right.
Dad's like, hey, look. I just worked 40 hours sweating up wherever he did. I sweated up in that hot shop.
He was a truck driver.
I sweated in that truck. I jumped in and out that truck. I fueled it. I did my pre-trip, post-trip. I did thousands of miles. I'm going to enjoy some of this check.
Right, absolutely.
And I've adopted a strong level of that mindset. But there's danger to that mindset.
It is. It really is. Because you're in emotions. You know, you're making it, you know, one of the topics, you know.
Losing it, bro.
Yeah, you
Straight up.
You know, you're in emotions when you're in that mentality and that mindset. Now, it's not to say that you shouldn't, you know, that you shouldn't actually reward yourself, but there's something that's called a budget, right?
Word.
And so, and one of the things my wife and I did recently was we set aside an account to allocate for certain things that we want, pleasures, you know, so to speak. You know, I like coffee every now and then, you know, and not the coffee at my house, you know what I'm saying? And so, you know, my wife was the same way. She may want to get, you know, an extra whatever with the whipped cream and the cherry on top, whatever, you know what I mean?
That's beautiful.
But of course, that's not going to be what we get here. And so we have a reserve account allocated for that, and then snacks that we may want to get out when we're with the kids. So, but once it's gone, it's gone. And so we'll separate a certain amount every pay period, you know, to go to that account so that, you know, that's
listen to that wisdom. Know what I'm saying? This is the trial, error, the temporary defeat.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That breeds that. That was that desperation.
Mm-hmm.
We keep getting money, but then we want to do some of the things we want to do. We do the things we got to do, but then when you're doing some of the things you want to do too much, you start cutting into the things you got to do.
Right.
Now you're looking across the horizon for something to come out of nowhere.
Right.
So listen to that wisdom, you know, in that. So now, see, that blessed me. Now I can apply that to my life.
Right.
For my wife and I. Baby, I know we like to eat our Jamaican food, you know what I'm saying? We like to go to Queens or Jamaica House, where we can say, how much would it be for us to enjoy a nice meal once a week?
Right.
Put that to the side.
Right.
How much would it be for us to enjoy going to the movies twice a month? Just for our quality time, just her and I.
Right.
Boom. We have a whole account for that.
Now watch this.
Go ahead.
Now when you do that, guess what you do? You create a balance and an expectation within your emotions, right? So number one, the balance is you don't have that level of anxiety. Can I afford it? Can I not afford it? Right? Is this gonna come back and bite me? Is it you know? What I'm saying? Where is this coming from? Because I know it's coming from somewhere.
That's good.
You see what I'm saying? So number one, you're taking taking care of that part of your emotions. Number two, though, you setting up your expectation, the emotion for the future, because I know I did the right thing with this.
Word.
You see what I'm saying? So now, you know, you look forward to it because that's the treat. That's the carrot to you working hard all week or whatever you did to be able to deserve it.
You know, to be so honest with you, this is the first time I ever heard that.
Wow.
This is the first time I ever heard anybody saying that I can recall currently, but having we'll just call it a pleasure account.
Right. Absolutely. That's exactly what it is.
We'll have your pleasure account, because one thing that many of us have to realize, life is more than paying bills.
It is.
Life is more than giving out for those that do trade hours for dollars. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. We see any form of a job as a stepping stone for those that have greater goals. Right. You know what I'm saying? We business owners and entrepreneurs at heart. So, and we've experienced certain levels of success that make it more difficult to just be, oh, I'm going to get this, as we said, good job. One time I told bro, oh my goodness, I said, bro, I got a good job. Because see, I'm not fully, I'm being transparent, I'm not fully purged of the mindset that I grew, the established way of thinking. It was so deeply ingrained. Right. I'm working out the leaven, as we like to say in the ministry. We working out that. So I was like, bro, I found a good job. And bro, respecting your boy's feelings, he was like, okay. He hit me with that, okay, all right. But what he was really saying, bro, that's an oxymoron. What is a good job? A good just over broke? Oh, you got a good just over broke. So you a little higher than general just over broke. You're a little further. Now,
I said it respectfully.
He said it respectfully.
That conversation didn't happen all on the same day, right? Because, you know, one of the things is you gotta, you know, everybody grows in different stages, right? And so you may have something now that somebody else may not be ready for at the same time.
Thank you.
So you gotta allow them time to grow, right?
That's good.
And so, some of the information we may share on the podcast or on a video, it may not be for you right now. It may be for you a year from now, right? And so, what he shared with me, I was like, man, that's okay, yeah, and I congratulated him, but at the same time, I knew that he has so much more, right? But I also know he's going to take care of his family, and that's his primary objective. But also in taking care of his family, it's important for him to understand what he's going to do to provide for his family in the future. And so what we got to understand about jobs is a temporary fix to a broke situation. Let's just be completely honest, right? And so, but you use your job for multiple things. Number one, to pay for immediate things, right? But number two, also to take care of things in the future, right? And so, that's why it's important not to take all of the seed and eat the seed, right? A seed is designed to what? To plant and to grow a harvest, right?
Yeah.
And so the money that you get from a job is a seed, right? And so and so when you take the money and you organize, right? And you plant the seed after you pay your bills or whatever, and that's why it's important to make sure that you learn how to live on less of the seed, right? So that you're not making all of these bills to incorporate and then we'll talk about that here. But it's important to be able to retain as much of the seed as possible so that you can plant for your future to have a bigger harvest.
That's good. That's good, man. I appreciate that because these are things that we learn.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Self-education.
It
wasn't taught in school.
It wasn't in no school.
Right.
And it's so crazy, bro, that even in entrepreneurship, this is crazy. Even the I was laughing because I was like, for those that may or may not know, and this is no glory whatsoever, I'm just proving our point. I graduated with a bachelor's in business administration. Now, that has its place.
It does.
But even in that, in many cases, when you really look at it, they still preparing you to be an employee.
Right.
And somebody was like, why do you go to business school to be an employee? Because some of the focuses, like my focus was in marketing. So when I got out, this is just the truth. It wasn't even in my paradigm to say, well, let me go start a marketing firm.
Right.
Let me go learn social media marketing. Let me go find the best form of new marketing and build a business around it. No, I'm thinking, let me go find a position in a marketing firm, and that could be a stepping stone. But how many individuals, because I'm learning, when I was writing the book, I learned not to continue to make broad statements without getting a little more information. But I'll say this. How many people that you know or yourself that has a degree in something that you started a business to do it?
Right. And that's a difference in the growth mentality versus the fixed mentality.
Okay.
Which we talked about before. But it's a difference between a person who's solely dependent upon the traditional scholastic education mindset from a person who is a little bit unorthodox in their learning environment, right? And so a lot of those kids, you see these kids, right? But you don't know that these are those type of kids, right? I did a video one time called A students work for C students. Now these C students, you gotta watch these C students. I was a C student, right? But I was around A students, okay? Now, and this is why it's so important to be able to place the right value on children and on yourselves as you grow and watch them develop, right?
Good.
The C students, they're not particularly fond of the environment that they're in. Do they have a potential? Absolutely, they have a potential, right? But it's just the setting and the environment. They can't grow. See, everybody has a different learning style. But if you judge everybody from the same curriculum with the same learning style, then you're going to get various different outcomes, right? And so C students, they're more creative to me, in my opinion, in my own personal experience. I wanted to be outside of the class. I was always daydreaming. If I sit next to a window, man, I was out there.
You out
right?
there.
I can remember my first grade teacher. I was daydreaming, and she came back. This was when teachers could whoop students back in the day, right? And so my teacher had this big ruler, right? And she used to give it to some of the students, man. I never got a whooping, right? But she came over one day, man. I was looking out of the window, and we were supposed to be doing an examiner. Wow! Right on the desk. And she said, "Get your head out of the window." And I don't remember what she said, but I was out in the class, man. I was just out there, right? And so, I'm saying all this to say is, you got to understand that the way the mind works,
True.
Right? You got to understand the way that certain, mentalities are created, okay? And so, A students work for C students. These C students, they'll be the ones who will observe, and they'll look at, and they're not in the box, right? They're out of the box thinkers, and they'll say, hey, they'll start thinking, they'll observe something, they'll say, well, you know what? How do you do this? And they'll start asking questions, right? And when they start asking questions, you gotta understand they're going somewhere, because they'll figure out how to actually own the business and how to employ you after you've gotten your degree.
Word.
You understand what I'm saying?
Word.
So again, and Robert Kiyosaki talks about it, Think and Grow, not Think and Grow Rich.
Robert Kiyosaki?
Robert Kiyosaki authored Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? And so he had a rich dad and he had a poor dad. His rich dad was advocate for for scholastic education. His poor dad, his poor dad, right? So that was his biological father. So he would tell Robert, go to school, get your education, blah 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 blah.
You should listen to that audio when you get
Absolutely
on YouTube.
Number one best-selling business book, actually number 2, well over 20 years. I think they just celebrated a 20-year anniversary. But and his poor dad was his best friend's dad, all right?
And rich dad.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I keep messing.
It's cool, it's
right,
cool.
his rich dad, absolutely.
Yeah.
His rich dad was his best friend's dad, who actually owned multiple businesses, multiple companies, right? And he would tell him that the only reason that you would need to go to get a job is to learn, right?
He did.
Go to get a job to learn.
Listen to this.
Okay, a certain skill set that you will need, right? So again, a lot of us, we go to work or go get a job to just for the money, right? But you got to ask yourself, what am I becoming in this environment, right?
Can I interject?
Absolutely.
So we like to be, when you think about what this show is about, message for millennials and their minors, and there is a large, there's a degree where we are focusing on the urban demographic as well, but this is for all millennials.
Right.
But I want to point something out according to what bro said, because being around different types of people, I understand how they think. What he just said, somebody would take that. Please get this. Monday we talked about the growth and the fixed mindset. Some people will listen to that with fixed mindset ears and say, oh, I can't do that because of A, B, C, and D. Instead of saying, with a growth mindset, what do I have to do to get into that job?
Right.
So you really have to look at your circumstance.
Right.
So you can say, all right, boom, I want to work in this type of industry. I want to do engineering.
Right.
Well, I'm not educated enough right now, so I can only work at this place driving a forklift. Well, set a plan, set a goal. I'll work in this forklift industry long enough, but when I get home, I'm going to educate myself. But while I'm on the forklift, instead of listening to Rick Ross or Cardi B or Offset or Gucci Mane or whoever, these artists are, you can say, I'm going to listen to something on YouTube or even a podcast, if there is one, of an engineer.
Absolutely.
So you educate yourself on the level of engineering. Or we can take it another step. I'm going to learn as much as I can about engineering. I'll start my own engineering podcast. Have real life engineers come on over it. See the lateral way of thinking?
Absolutely.
And I'll begin to monetize my information to help up and come. Because maybe I can't become an engineer.
Right.
In that light.
Right.
But I'll become an engineer in this light. You still get to create. Why? An engineer is a creator.
Right.
Bro said we in the creation age. So don't say, oh, I come from a family of these type. I got a felony. I'll never be an engineer. No.
Right.
Don't look at it like that. If you got to work and drive a forklift for 3 years, 5 years, set that goal.
Right.
And self-educate yourself. Get all the books in the library. You can start a firm. You can change the game with engineers. Stop conforming to just say, I have to be this type of engineer. You're an inventor, an engineer, create.
Absolutely.
What's your thoughts on that, bro?
Absolutely, man. And that's honestly what makes the process so much more bearable. It makes it exciting actually, because see, when you're working, right? Again, we talked about the income that you get from the job to be able to take care of the immediate expenses, but also to plan for the future, right? But then we shifted and talked about the skill sets that you develop while at a specific job. Now, let's say you're in a job right now and you're not necessarily gaining any skill sets, right? You're getting something, right? Just look at what it is that you may be getting out of it.
That's good.
Okay. Now you from there, look at all the good that you may be getting. Now, if you're in a position where you're not getting any good, I understand, right? That may just be either your mindset or maybe a real thing, right? But either way, you want to look at it closely. Okay. From there, you want to start to set a plan, right? You want to start to set a plan because the future plan is what's going to make you go through, is what's going to help you go through this process a lot more with the right mentality.
That's good.
You see what I'm saying? Because the plan, the vision of the future is what's going to pull you into and pull that into your reality.
Word.
Holding that image still, right? It's going to create the right emotion. See, the difference is, let's say if I told you, you know, I had $1 million in the bank account for you, but you can't get it until a year from now today, right? It would be no matter what happened within the next 12 months,
That's good,
you're
bro.
going to be excited.
Word.
Why? Because you already know you got $1 million coming to you in the next 12 months, right? And so that's the dream, that's the goal that you got to do for you. You have to do that for yourself, right? And as that does that, as that begins, that dream and that plan pulls you into the future, what you got to also do is set small goals, right? When you set these small goals and you can accomplish these small goals on a month to month basis, this is what's going to help you also create, right, the right emotions, even getting to that point of, see, it's like school, right? But now it's not a structure that's already created. You're creating your own school with the stepping stones, right? Again, this is that self-education, right? So when you do that, guys, I'm telling you, it's a lot more rewarding because now you're imposing the disciplines and the routines on yourself.
Word. I love that, man. Like, you know, just the value, as I share with him even off camera, this is beneficial. I take this personal. I'm taking this podcast personal.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, I want to be a better husband, better father, better brother, better business owner, better minister, better everything. So plan maturity is personal to me.
It is.
So when I hear, you know, bro, I told bro he be dropping the nuggets, I'm just going to start bringing the sauce, man. Because it's like, you know, your perspective. If you say, all right, for me, in this, I like to make it personal.
Right.
I have this book here. This is my book, and this podcast. These are businesses in and of themselves.
Right.
So if I say, okay, June 27th, a year from now, plan maturity, weapons of mass destruction imprint will be $3 million, $5 million net worth in this company. And as the CEO, maybe I get, you know, 20%. That's $1 million. So, if that is real, because remember what he said, your belief is your reality.
Right.
So if I really believe that, write it out and start to put something so that I can see it and work towards it, every monthly goal, every quarterly goal, you know, 1,000 new listeners a month, you know, 500 new readers a month, then I can have goals that I'm aiming towards and then have to break it down to smaller pieces to have those obtainable goals. But even that, I can work a job that's to me menial.
Right.
No, not taking like I'm a better than anybody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's not what I'm saying. But I could, like I shared with bro, I'm gonna be totally transparent. I worked a job before and I worked 45 hours and I made $600, $700 after taxes. I told bro I spoke for an organization to a school for 45 minutes. I made $850. So 45 versus 45.
Right.
It's like,
right.
I mean, what do you think?
Right.
45 hours yielded me $700. 45 minutes yielded me $850. Why? Your value.
Right.
You have to become valuable.
Absolutely.
To the organization. If you become more valuable than that forklift driver, then you have what we would call negotiating capability.
Absolutely.
You can say, excuse me, Mr. Robinson, I drive this forklift. I time myself. See, they want to see you take initiative.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that I can fill 2 trucks in 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say no names, but others take a little longer. Maybe we can negotiate a raise. I know what policy says, but I just want you to realize. See, posture yourself. All this got to do with finance. Posture yourself. I found a few other opportunities, but I like working here.
Right.
Could we negotiate a raise that's a little more suitable? You know, my family's growing. What's your thoughts on that?
Right.
See, now you not took his power, but you showed your value
right.
to say, hey, man, I'm looking at going other places. What can we negotiate?
Right.
And that's all about that vision. So I say all that to bring this back, what my brother here said. If I say, it don't matter how hard I got to work at this job, I know a year from now, I'm going to be worth $1 million.
Right.
It makes it bearable.
Absolutely. It makes it so much more bearable, and it gives you, like I said, the right mindset, mentality while you're going through the process, and which is, the right perspective. And so I like what you shared, about the example of understanding value, because that's, at the end of the day, is the biggest thing with being able to determine where you are in terms of income, right, or financial or economics. Okay. And so what I mean by that is basically, you don't have to necessarily always demand a raise, right?
Okay.
You just increase your value in the marketplace,
Wow.
right? And so again, you gave a great example of $45. 45 minutes yielding you $800 versus 45 hours. Well, it's the value in the marketplace, right? For what he was able to do in those 45 minutes. Obviously, a lot of people aren't able to do that. That's why he was afforded the opportunity to position himself. So that was a skill set in and of itself that you developed to be able to acquire that, right?
Gotcha.
And so now sometimes you'll run into a situation where the job only pays what it pays. That position only pays what it pays, right? And so if you grow your value, right, to outperform or outpace the pay in that position, then you've outvalued that position. Now that's where the traditional scholastic education comes in, where it says, I'm overqualified for this position. You see what I mean? But now, that's traditional education from an economic standpoint, right? The difference with an entrepreneur is, an entrepreneur, you can't really place a tangible value on what an entrepreneur has from a standpoint of being able, because as an entrepreneur, you do so many things, right? You manage companies, you're doing a payroll, you're doing, so many things that you do. If you're a true entrepreneur, and of course later on you may, delegate, right? As your business expands and you're able to scale and put people and put positions in place, right? But in the beginning, you have to learn so many skill sets, right? That you may have learned from being on the job, right? And so you'll do those things, but there's no way to put a tangible number on that particular skill that you're doing.
So I got a question for you, bro. Like, let's say you have a gentleman or a young lady out here that's listening that do believe that, because I really want to work on stop using the feel so much. We have feel, I feel that. That's
right.
Emotion. But what would you say to a gentleman or a young lady who really sees that they're providing more value that they're being paid for? What would be possible suggestions to them? Because that's hard to do for long periods of time. If you know I'm adding way more value than y'all paying me.
Well, that's a great question. Number one, I would tell you to keep adding value, right? Because I learned from a mentor is to make an investment in your future, right? Do more than what you're paid for. Okay. to make an investment in your future.
Wow.
Now that's going to do a couple of things to you. Number one, it's going to create the right mentality for you so that when you go off on your own, you already have this habit of doing more than what you're paid for. See, when you only do more, do what you're paid for, that doesn't work. It doesn't translate well as an entrepreneur. You understand what I'm saying?
You shortchanging, shortcutting.
Right, because now you're gonna be looking, in traditional job scene, you get paid for time, right? But really you don't. But that's the perception is you get paid for time, right? When you're an entrepreneur, you don't get paid for time.
That's true.
Right, so you can sit down at your desk and you can rearrange stuff. You can go to the bathroom for 2 or 3 hours, right?
Yeah. Tell that truth, bro.
Right.
Tell that truth, though.
And if you don't, I'm working in the insurance industry. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm not writing policies, guess what? I'm generating commission. Right? If I'm not sitting down across from somebody and I'm providing a service for them, I don't get paid, right?
Wow.
And so, that's the same thing. But again, in my industry, we do have leverage also. So if I have other agents out there who are writing policies, I do get residuals from that as well. But at the same time, you got to understand that for that person, that man or woman or that young person who may be saying, I'm providing more value, right? Keep providing value. However, you do want to come up with a plan. Okay,
Bingo.
Come up with a plan so again you can actually start to put that in place, right, and work towards it. And another thing that I learned is you want to work part-time on your fortune while working full-time on your job.
Word.
See, sometimes people right there, they say that this is where they get discontent because they say, you know what, I'm doing more than what everybody else is doing. I know how to run the whole place. This person don't know X, Y, and Z, right? But when they get home off of work, that's what they do. They go home and they complain about the situation to their spouse, and then they go home and they watch TV, and they do it all over again. No. If you're discontent, right, and you got a lot of value to add, right, guess what? Figure out how you can transition your skill sets to something that you can call your own, all right? And then once you do that, right, now you're excited about going in there and adding that value and continuously doing what you're passionate about because you're working on something here.
Man, I pray that y'all got that. I pray that was valuable. We had other things to discuss on finance. We'll use that for next week. But do you see the marriage between the mindset and the money? As I put, importance of mindset and money. Because, our goal is to provide tangible, practical things for life. You know what I'm saying? And that's real. Some people out here busting their butts, really adding value to these companies, but because of the system of that company, this is all they're paying.
Right.
And at times, as a human, you can be like, man, look, man, I know that if I was this and that, it can be a little disheartening.
Right.
But as he said, and as we saw, attitude is everything.
Right.
So use that as fuel. You know what I'm saying? You watch TV for 3 hours, make it an hour and a half.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? As you grow past that, make it an hour. Like, take steps. That's what I learned. Because just like, if you losing weight or you got a certain diet, you can't cut a whole 500 calories out right away.
No, exactly.
You may not have that discipline.
Right.
And that's what I had to learn for myself because I'm kind of a all or nothing person. And that has its pros and cons.
Right.
So when I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to start my workout Monday. Don't do that.
Right.
I'm gonna start Monday. It's
Right.
Wednesday this week. So what about Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Right.
I said I'm gonna start Monday. And if I'm not successful. Oh man, what's the business? Yeah. That was episode 2, our very first Financial Freedom Friday. And I truly pray y'all found value, man. We're just gonna keep bringing the heat. Y'all like, comment, and share on YouTube. We will be posting it on other podcast platforms as well. We've just been really overcoming a lot of different technical difficulties as we did on this episode. I had such trouble in chopping it up and putting it together. I just went ahead and faded it out, closed it out. But like I said, I had to learn myself, done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. What that means is when you're producing a product, nothing will be absolutely perfect. But do the best that you can. Do the absolute best that you can to produce a quality product, be it a book, be it a podcast, be it a studio song, be it a stage play, be it a movie. Do the best that you can. But at the same time, close that project out and put it out to the people. People have been blessed by some of the worst productions out there. But if they never get released, then who has the opportunity to grow from it? So this is only episode 2. I'm not going to kill myself. I used to struggle with that so hard. So I said, you know what, bro? You got a fresh start. Do it right, man. Just close it out. Do the best you can. Put the content out there. As things grow, as we get more revenue in a general sense, you can do it in the studio. And you can have somebody to edit it. So I ain't going to talk your head off. I already talked too long. Check us out Monday, July the 8th, 2019. That will be our 3rd episode of Mindset Monday. We talking about manhood and what's going on with the men out here. So stay tuned for our Manhood Mayhem episode 1, part 1. And that's going to be hitting the scenes on YouTube this Monday coming up. Love y'all. God bless. We are playing maturity. We are creating the perfect citizen. Peace.